Alright, let's go. Number 10. But before I give you the 10 reasons some scientists believe an object that just passed through our solar system might be alien technology, I want to start with the one that made headlines around the world. Because a Harvard scientist looked at this object and said out loud what almost no one in his field is willing to say. He said it might be hostile. In July of 2025, we discovered only the third object in all of human history confirmed to have come from beyond our solar system, an interstellar visitor drifting in from the darkness between the stars. It is called 3I/Atlas. And within weeks of its discovery, one of the most prominent astrophysicists in the world, Avi Loeb of Harvard University, along with a small group of collaborators, posted a scientific paper arguing something that sent a chill through the entire field. They argued that the object's characteristics were consistent with, though not proof of, the possibility that it was disguised technology. And not just any technology, possibly hostile technology. Now, I need to be honest with you from the very start. Most scientists disagree with Loeb. The mainstream consensus is that 3I/Atlas is a comet, a natural, ancient, icy object from another star. A dedicated search for artificial signals came up empty. The careful, safe scientific position is that this is a comet and nothing more. But Avi Loeb is not a crank. He is the former chair of the astronomy department at Harvard. He has published hundreds of scientific papers, and he has spent years making an argument that is very difficult to fully dismiss. His argument is this: the galaxy is full of stars, full of planets, full of the potential for life. If even one civilization, anywhere, in the entire 13 billion year history of our galaxy, ever built something and sent it out into space, then those objects would be drifting through the galaxy right now, and occasionally one would pass through our solar system. Loeb's point is not that 3I/Atlas is definitely alien technology. His point is that when something strange enters our solar system, something that behaves in ways we cannot fully explain, the scientifically responsible thing to do is to check, to seriously investigate, not to assume it is harmless and look away. And 3I/Atlas behaved strangely, very strangely. It did things that comets are not supposed to do. And over the course of this list, I am going to show you every one of them, the anomalies that made a Harvard scientist willing to stake his reputation on asking the question everyone else was afraid to ask. Because here's the truth that Loeb keeps repeating, and that his critics cannot fully answer. If we never look, we will never know. And the one time it actually matters, the one time a visitor turns out to be more than a rock, the cost of having assumed it was harmless could be greater than any mistake our species has ever made. So let us begin. Let me show you why this object is so strange that a serious scientist called it a possible threat. Number 9. The tail that pointed the wrong way. Comet tails follow one of the most basic, reliable rules in all of astronomy. They point away from the sun, always. This happens because a comet's tail is made of gas and dust, blown off the comet by the solar wind and the pressure of sunlight, which always pushes that material in the direction away from the sun. No matter which way the comet is traveling, its tail streams behind it, away from the sun, like smoke blown in a steady wind. 3I/Atlas appeared, at times, to break this rule. Observations revealed that the object seemed to display a tail pointing toward the sun, an anti-tail, a sun-facing jet, something that, on its surface, appears to violate the fundamental physics of how comet tails are supposed to behave. Think about how strange that is. Every comet we have ever studied blows its tail away from the sun, and here was an object that appeared to be pushing material toward the sun, in the wrong direction, against the flow, as if it were not simply being blown by sunlight, but actively directing something. Now, I want to be fair to the science. Anti-tails are a known phenomenon, and they usually have a natural explanation. Often, they are an optical illusion, caused by the angle from which we happen to be viewing the comet, as we see its dust trail edge on from a particular perspective. They can also be caused by larger, heavier dust particles that are too massive to be easily pushed away by sunlight, and which spread out along the comet's orbital path. So a sun-facing tail is not, by itself, proof of anything artificial, but it is deeply counterintuitive. And in the context of an object that was already behaving strangely, a tail that appears to point toward the sun instead of away from it added to the growing sense that this visitor did not follow the normal rules. For those inclined to wonder, a jet pointing toward the sun looks less like passive outgassing and more like something being actively aimed. The natural explanation is very likely correct, but the image of it, an object seemingly pushing toward the star instead of being pushed away from it, is exactly the kind of anomaly that keeps the alien technology question alive. It looks, to the untrained eye, and even to some trained ones, like something a machine would do, not a rock. Number 8. The push that gravity cannot explain. This is one of the most important and most debated points in the entire story. And to understand why it matters so much, you have to go back to the very first interstellar object we ever discovered. In 2017, an object called Oumuamua passed through our solar system, and astronomers noticed something deeply unsettling about it. It was accelerating, speeding up in a way that gravity alone could not explain. Something was giving it an extra push. And here was the problem. For a normal comet, that push comes from outgassing, the jets of gas that act like little rocket engines. But Oumuamua showed no visible tail, no obvious outgassing to account for the acceleration. There was a force acting on it, and no visible cause. This unexplained push was the single biggest reason a Harvard astrophysicist suggested Oumuamua might be artificial. Perhaps, he argued, it was being pushed by the pressure of sunlight itself, like a solar sail. A thin, engineered sheet, catching starlight the way a sailboat catches wind. A piece of technology. So when 3I/Atlas arrived, astronomers watched it with extraordinary care to see if it would do the same thing, and the results have been debated ever since. There have been claims of possible non-gravitational acceleration, hints that the object's motion could not be fully accounted for by gravity alone. If true, it would be a chilling echo of the Oumuamua mystery. A second interstellar object, moving in ways that gravity cannot fully explain. Now here is the nuance. For a comet, some non-gravitational acceleration is actually completely normal. The outgassing acts like a gentle rocket, nudging the comet slightly off its purely gravitational path. So if 3I/Atlas is outgassing, and it clearly is, then some non-gravitational push would be expected and natural. Some astronomers have argued the effect may not even be significant at all. But here is why it still matters. The details are everything. The strength of the acceleration, its direction, and crucially, whether it matches what the visible outgassing can actually account for. If an object is accelerating in a way that its outgassing cannot explain, then something else is pushing it. And something else, when we cannot identify it, is exactly the kind of gap into which the possibility of technology quietly creeps. For most scientists, the acceleration of 3I/Atlas is just ordinary cometary physics. Nothing more. But for a few, it remains an open question, an unexplained force acting on an object from another star, echoing the exact anomaly that made Oumuamua so famous. 2 interstellar objects, 2 unexplained pushes, and a question that will not go away. Number 7, it switched on at the wrong distance. Comets are, in principle, simple objects. They are balls of ice and dust. When they get close enough to the sun, the ice heats up, turns directly to gas, and streams off the comet, creating the glowing coma and the tail. This process is called outgassing, and it happens at a fairly predictable distance from the sun once the comet becomes warm enough. 3I/Atlas did not follow this rule. Observations revealed that the object was blasting out water at a rate of about 40 kilograms per second, while it was still extremely far from the sun, much farther out than the distance at which most comets switch on and become active. At that distance, it should have been too cold. The sun's warmth should have been far too weak to drive that kind of violent activity. And yet, there it was, spraying enormous quantities of water into space, far too early, far too far from the sun. 40 kilograms of water every single second from an object that should have been frozen and dormant. It was as if something inside it was generating activity on its own, rather than simply reacting to the warmth of the distant sun. For a natural comet, this demands a special explanation. Perhaps it contains unusual, highly volatile ices that turn to gas at much lower temperatures than normal. Perhaps its chemical composition is exotic, forged around a different kind of star, unlike anything in our own solar system. These are plausible natural explanations, and most scientists favor them. But the anomaly is real, and it is strange. This object became active when it should have been silent. It released energy and material at a distance where it should have been a frozen, inert ball of ice. And for those looking for reasons to be suspicious, an object that seems to be generating activity, rather than passively reacting to sunlight, is exactly the kind of behavior that raises the hair on the back of your neck. It was doing something, when it should have been doing nothing. Number 6. The jets that wobbled in ways we could not predict. As astronomers studied 3I/Atlas in detail, they noticed something else unusual about its activity. The jets of material streaming off the object were not steady or stable. They appeared to wobble, to shift, to change direction and intensity in ways that were difficult to fully predict. For a natural comet, this can happen. As a comet rotates, different regions of its surface rotate into sunlight, and jets can switch on and off, change direction, and vary in strength as the comet spins. The wobbling can be explained by the rotation of an irregular, tumbling nucleus with active regions coming in and out of the light. But the specific pattern of the wobbling, its complexity, and its unpredictability added yet another layer to the mystery. When an object's behavior becomes complex enough that it is difficult to model, difficult to predict, and difficult to fully explain, it leaves room for speculation. A steady, simple jet is easy to attribute to simple physics. A complex, shifting, wobbling pattern of activity is much harder to pin down, and in the gaps of our understanding, the more unsettling possibilities take root. For most astronomers, the wobbling jets are simply the signature of a rotating, irregular comet nucleus, nothing more. But for those watching closely, every additional layer of complexity, every behavior that resists a simple explanation, is another small reason to keep the question open. Another anomaly stacked on top of all the others. Number 5. The moment it captured the entire world's attention. Something happened with 3I/Atlas that had almost never happened before with an astronomical object. It broke out of the quiet world of science and exploded into mainstream global culture. As speculation about the object spread, the public became fascinated. And the fascination reached a fever pitch when Kim Kardashian, one of the most followed people on the entire planet, publicly asked NASA to reveal what they knew about the object. Her request went viral, seen by millions of people who had never once thought about interstellar objects in their entire lives. Suddenly, an obscure astronomical visitor was global news. The speculation grew so intense that NASA held a briefing specifically to address it. Scientists found themselves publicly answering questions about whether the object was an alien spacecraft. The story had escaped the astronomy journals entirely and become a genuine cultural phenomenon. Now, why does this belong on the list? A celebrity asking about a comet is not, by itself, scientific evidence of anything, but it points to something real and important. The sheer intensity of the public fascination, and the fact that NASA felt compelled to hold an official briefing to address alien speculation, reflects a deeper truth. This object touched a nerve. It tapped into a question humanity has been asking for thousands of years. Are we alone? And could the answer, one day, simply drift into our solar system, unannounced, from the dark? Ordinary comets do not lead to NASA briefings about alien technology. Ordinary comets do not get demands for answers from the most famous people on Earth. Something about this one was different enough, strange enough, to make the question feel real to millions of people at once. And that collective, instinctive reaction, that sense that something was genuinely off, is itself part of the story. Number 4. It's data prasu a3 aser. It is older than the sun itself. When astronomers analyzed the object's trajectory and velocity, they were able to estimate where it came from and how long it had been traveling through the galaxy. And the conclusion was staggering. This object may be nearly 12 billion years old, possibly even older. Let that sink in. Our sun is about 4.5 billion years old. Our entire solar system, the Earth, all the planets, everything you have ever known, formed 4.5 billion years ago. This object may be more than twice that age. It may have formed when the universe itself was still young, around a star that lived its entire life and died long before our sun was ever born. Think about the journey this object has taken. It has been drifting through interstellar space for longer than our solar system has existed. The star it formed around has almost certainly burned out and died billions of years ago. Its entire home system may be gone, scattered into dust and darkness, and all that remains of that ancient, vanished world is this single object, wandering the galaxy, carrying within it a frozen record of a time and a place so old that it predates almost everything we know. For a natural object, extreme age is strange, but not impossible. Naturalist non impossible. There are ancient things in the universe, but here is why the age matters for our question. If you were an ancient, long-dead civilization, and you wanted to send something out into the galaxy that would endure, that would drift for billions of years, and perhaps be found by someone, someday you would build it to last. An object that has survived 12 billion years of interstellar travel is either an extraordinarily durable natural object or something engineered to endure the impossible journey. The age alone proves nothing, But combined with everything else, it deepens the unease. This thing is a relic from the dawn of the cosmos, and it came here. Number 3. It was hiding in our images before we ever noticed it. Here is a genuinely eerie detail. After 3I/Atlas was officially discovered in July of 2025, astronomers went back through archival images, older photographs of the sky taken by various telescopes before anyone knew the object existed, and they found it. It was already there, in images taken before its discovery. It had been captured, unknowingly, by our telescopes, drifting through our field of view, before we ever realized it was there. Now, this is actually a common and scientifically useful practice. Once you know where an object is, you can find it in older data, which helps you refine its orbit and understand its history. So finding 3I/Atlas in pre-discovery images is completely normal and genuinely valuable to science. But there is something deeply unsettling about it when you frame it a certain way. This object was already here, already moving through our solar system, already captured by our instruments, and we did not know. It slipped past our attention, sitting right there in our data, unrecognized, until after it had already made its approach and begun to leave. It is a chilling reminder of how limited our awareness truly is. Something can enter our solar system, pass through it, be photographed by our own telescopes, and leave, all before we fully understand what it was. If this object had been something more than a comet, if it had been technology, quietly observing us, quietly passing through, we would have detected it in exactly the same way, late, after the fact, only realizing it was there once it had already come and gone. We were not watching the door, we never are. Number 2, the silence when we listened for a signal. If 3I/Atlas were alien technology, there is one thing you might reasonably expect it to do. Emit some kind of signal, a radio transmission, a beacon, some electromagnetic sign of its artificial nature. So scientists did the obvious thing. They pointed radio telescopes at it, and they listened. They conducted a search for technosignatures, for artificial radio signals coming from the object. If it was transmitting anything, if it was broadcasting, if it was communicating in any way we could detect, this search was designed to find it. The search came up empty. No artificial signals were detected, no radio beacon, no transmission, nothing at all that would indicate the object was actively broadcasting. For most scientists, this was yet another piece of evidence that 3I/Atlas is a natural object. A comet does not transmit radio signals, and neither did this. The silence supported the mainstream view and reassured a lot of people. But here is the uncomfortable counterpoint that those on the other side of the debate raise, and it is genuinely hard to answer. The absence of a signal does not prove the absence of technology. If an object were designed to observe quietly, to pass through undetected, to gather information without ever revealing itself, then the very last thing it would do is broadcast its presence for all to hear. A silent probe is not evidence of no probe. It is exactly what you would expect from a probe that did not want to be found. This is the maddening nature of the entire question. Every single piece of evidence can be read two ways. The silence is either proof that it is a harmless natural comet, or proof that it is a well-designed piece of technology, doing precisely what a well-designed piece of technology would do, staying quiet, staying hidden, and there is no way, from silence alone, to tell the difference between the two. Which is why, for the people asking these questions, the empty radio search did not close the case at all. It simply confirmed that if something is out there, watching, it is not going to politely announce itself. And that possibility, however unlikely, cannot be ruled out by silence. You cannot prove something is not hiding simply because it is quiet. Number 1. The reason the next one might not just pass by. Everything on this list so far has been about one specific object, 3I/Atlas, an interstellar visitor that, in all probability, is a natural comet, however strange it was, and it has now passed through our solar system and is heading back out into the dark, on its way to becoming a distant memory. Whatever it was, it did not stop. It did not act. It simply passed through and left. But here's the thought that the scientists at the center of this debate want us to sit with, and it is the most important and most unsettling point of all. We have now detected 3 interstellar objects in less than a decade. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, and 3I/Atlas in 2025. And with powerful new survey telescopes coming online, telescopes specifically built to scan the entire sky continuously, night after night, we are about to start detecting many, many more. Some astronomers predict we may soon be finding interstellar objects on a regular basis, dozens of them, perhaps far more. Think about what that means. For all of human history, we were completely blind to these visitors. We did not even know they existed until 2017. And now suddenly, we are discovering that our solar system is regularly visited by objects from other stars. They have probably been passing through for billions of years, and we simply never noticed. We are only now, for the very first time, opening our eyes. And the question that follows is the one that keeps Avi Loeb and others like him awake at night. Out of all these interstellar objects, all these countless visitors from other stars, are they all natural? Every single one? Across the entire history of a galaxy that has existed for over 13 billion years, filled with hundreds of billions of stars and planets, did no civilization ever, anywhere, send anything out into the void? And if even one of them did, if even a tiny fraction of the objects passing through our solar system are artificial, then eventually, one of them might not simply pass through. One of them might slow down. One of them might change course. One of them might be here not by accident, but on purpose. And we would desperately want to know, before it was too late, which kind of visitor we were dealing with. This is why the debate truly matters. Not because 3I/Atlas is definitely alien technology. It almost certainly is not. But because it is a rehearsal, a test of our ability to detect, study, and understand the objects that enter our solar system from the great dark beyond. And if we get into the habit of assuming that every strange visitor is harmless, of dismissing every anomaly, of never seriously checking, then the one time it actually matters, the one time a visitor is something more, we will not be ready. We will not even be looking. The scientists asking these questions are not saying the sky is falling. They are saying something more subtle and more reasonable than the headlines suggest. They are saying we should look, we should check, we should take the possibility seriously enough to investigate it properly, rather than laughing it off, because the cost of being wrong, of assuming harmless and being mistaken even once, could be greater than any other mistake our species has ever made. 3I/Atlas is leaving now, racing back out toward the stars from which it came, carrying its mysteries with it forever. In all likelihood, it was exactly what most scientists believe it to be, an ancient, strange, natural comet from a dead star, older than our sun, doing unusual but ultimately natural things. But we do not know for certain. We never will. It is already too far away, already leaving, already beyond our ability to study it closely. And that, in the end, is the most unsettling truth of all. Something came into our solar system from another star. It behaved in ways we could not fully explain. We argued about what it was, and before we could reach a final answer, it left, taking the truth with it. And the next one is already out there, drifting toward us across the immense dark from some distant star. We do not know when it will arrive. We do not know what it will be. And we do not know when it comes whether it will simply pass through, like all the others, or whether one day one of them will stop. And that senior astronomer, the one some of you have asked me about, the one who allegedly said, off the record, that he wished we had never looked. When he said it, he was not only talking about the deep mysteries of the distant universe, he was talking about this too, about the slow, creeping realization that our solar system is not the sealed, private, protected place we always imagined it to be, that the door is open, that things come through it, and that one day, something might come through that does not leave. Once you understand that interstellar objects are real, that they pass through our solar system, and that we are only just beginning to see them, you cannot look at the night sky the same way again. Every point of light up there is a star, and around those stars are worlds. And from those worlds, across billions of years, things have been set adrift into the dark. Most of them are ice and rock, almost all of them, but not necessarily all. The next time you hear that another interstellar object has been discovered passing through our solar system, and you will hear it sooner than you think, remember 3I/Atlas. Remember how strange it was. Remember how its tail seemed to point the wrong way, and how it accelerated in ways gravity struggled to explain, and how it switched on too early, too far from the sun, and how its jets wobbled unpredictably, and how it hid in our images before we noticed it, and how it stayed perfectly silent when we listened. Remember how a serious Harvard scientist looked at all of that and refused to simply assume it was harmless. And remember that, in the end, it left before we could ever be sure. Because the universe is vast and old and full of possibilities we have barely begun to imagine. And the objects drifting through it, crossing the immense dark between the stars, carry secrets that we are only now, for the first time in human history, becoming able to detect. We have opened our eyes. We are starting to see the visitors. And now, the only question that remains is what we will do when one of them, someday, turns out to be more than a comet. When one of them does not race past us and vanish back into the dark. When one of them, for reasons we cannot yet imagine, decides to stay. That day may never come. almost certainly, the visitors will keep being what they have always been: ancient rocks and ice, drifting harmlessly through our neighborhood on their way to somewhere else. But we are watching now. And for the first time, we would know. We would see it coming. And maybe that is the most important thing of all. Not fear, but awareness. The simple, profound act of finally opening our eyes to a universe that has been sending us visitors all along, and choosing at last to look closely at what comes through the door. If this video changed the way you think about the objects passing through our solar system, then you should know there are other strange visitors, other anomalies, other mysteries drifting in from the dark that never made the mainstream news. I made a video about those. It is on the screen right now. If this one kept you up, that one will keep you up longer. And if you want to be here the moment the next interstellar object is discovered, hit subscribe, because they are coming more often now, not less. And one day, one of them is going to be the most important thing humanity has ever found. Alright, see you in the next one.